everybody, happy Tuesday evening. I hope everybody had a great day and have a good start to their week. Today we'll discuss topic, of course, Russia. Today there was an interview conducted with Krista Grozov, who is one of the investigative journalists in Bellingcat and a lead investigator pertaining to Navalny's poisoning. He also released on December 34th Google Docs document pertaining travel he was able to put together of FSB officers for quite a few years, and he stated that he was able to obtain that information via billing. And the reason it was released as a Google Docs because people could add their information if they have any coincidences pertaining to those travel records. What was interesting, and I've done another video prior to this one, that the Bellingcat travel, a lot of it was to Kavkaz area. And this is very interesting in one way, but another way it doesn't make sense, and there's a few indiscrepancies that I'll try to explain. But nevertheless, this is what the records state. And Marfa Smirnova, she did quite a good work on a few of these identifiers. She identified Timur Guslev. He was found dead on August 1st, 2014. He was found dead near the forest, and he apparently went for a run. He didn't have any documentation with him. However, what is interesting about him, he spoke out against Kavkazi situation and politicians. He wasn't specifically speaking out too much against Putin or anything like that. But what is interesting about him is that he actually lived in downtown, and his body was found all the way near the forest areas that he went for a run, and apparently he died of a cardiac arrest. However, the family actually filed a complaint and also asked for European Union human rights to look into it as well, and European court. And the reason behind all of this, because there was a spot of incision found behind his arm, and they believe that he was actually murdered. And what is interesting about him specifically, and this has to do with Navalny, he spoke out against Navalny as well. And he stated that he's too arrogant. Even though he's a great blogger, he's not truly a politician. He'll never be president of Russia. And that resonates with a lot of people that are saying that he will not be the next president of Russia. He's just very arrogant. And also what constitutes that fact that this is very interesting too. Today a lot of pro-Navalny channels, spoke and also filmed a lot of different bits and pieces about Krista Grozov interview, etc., and everything like that. What is interesting, and they keep also pointing out, because there was also an interview done with the Kremlin Putin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov. He was talking to Solovyov about it. It was a lengthy interview. I'll touch back on it at the base of the video. But they keep pointing out that Peskov came from the village, and so is Solovyov, and they're self-made, but they're village people. But yet at the same time, then Navalny is a Russian elite. I mean, yes, his father was high up in the Ministry of Defense at one point in time, but I do not consider Navalny to be high elite besides arrogance, because even I think the true elites come from before 1917 Russia and Tsarist Russia. Not anything that artificially created by communist, oligarch, etc. This is all completely different scenario. But nevertheless, this is what's interesting. So anyways, he was speaking out about Navalny. Then he died. And what is really, at one point about Muslim custom in general, when somebody dies, you have to bury them the same night. So a lot of times people are very about autopsy, and that Kavkaz's majority is Islamic religion that is there, that usually would be very hard to perform autopsy, so this method could be easy. But nevertheless, what actually ponders about all this scenario, as far as, and I'll mention more names and everything like that, is that why do it when there? You could just blame it on terrorists and everything else. Why need to use chemical or any type of warfare to poison and murder individuals in such manners? The only thing I can think of, that Russia has been developing new type of agents, and they were just testing them on people as sight as and sounds and the ways they get murdered, because otherwise in that region you can easily make a terrorist insurgency. But nevertheless, this is not the first case pertaining, and those travels, coincide with the travel, and FSB traveled in Kavkaz region according, of course, to the, billing that was released, not confirmed, not denied, but like I said, coincidentally, this is what people are coming up with. There's also, of course, the poisoning of Karamazov Jr. Bellingcat is still looking into that, and apparently his symptoms were very similar to what happened to Alexei Navalny. He was poisoned actually, I believe, twice, but again, this is still not confirmed as far as like investigations are concerned. What is interesting too, and I'm actually very surprised that Bellingcat is not investigating that, because Bellingcat does a lot of work, is last year's death of Nazarbayev's grandson, who defected to England, who was outspoken critic, and he also knew a lot about Kremlin and a lot of information apparently he passed beforehand, and suddenly he was found dead in his London flat with cardiac arrest as well, never had heart issues, and young as well. And I'm surprised that didn't gain enough traction and publicity, and this just happened last year in London. So I'm very surprised there's not more people looking into that as well. So who else is on that list? There's quite a few people. There is, of course, Omar, but he's not on the billings, but nevertheless, he received a letter with poisonous attached to them, and he died, but he was an actual terrorist. So it's also very surprising he just didn't get shot dead, and such method was chosen for him, and clearly it was confirmed he was a terrorist, of course. However, let's look at quite other people. There's Dudaitsov too. He died in May 2015 under very suspicious circumstances, and it looks like he was poisoned as well. And there's not enough investigations that are taking place that people are looking into it. Even though Bellingcat is saying in a week or two they'll release more names. However, the reasoning behind it that they don't want to do that is based on the fact that they want to disturb the deceased family members and everybody like that, and start, stirring a pot. However, all those people, family members, believe that those individuals were poisoned. They did not die of any type of cardiac arrest or any type of causes of any sort. And also there's many others, for example, that are on that list that coincide with that Kavkaz travel. Additionally, and this is what is actually quite interesting, like I said, the only thing I can think of is that Russia is testing new chemical warfare or any type of new weapons. I mean, I'm not saying it's Novichok variant of some sort, and on Kavkaz, because like I said, it is very sad that people are used as guinea pigs, but nevertheless, it is very odd to use such method in Kavkaz. Like I said, it was easy there to use the guise of terrorism or different type of other family war and disguise it as that to do it, because it would have been much simpler in that. But nevertheless, this is how it's been happening. There's also, of course, quite a few too. There's also another individual named Dudayev who also died and apparently was also poisoned as well. However, he's much on a smaller scale. Not that I'm saying somebody's life is not valued, but Navalny made a lot of splash, a lot of news and everything like that, because he obviously survived, was taken to Germany. It is also unknown what exactly happened to him. Yes, he was poisoned, but by whom? And given the fact, like I said, he has so many enemies and so many people dislike him, even within certain opposition circles. However, it is not voiced to the West as much to that level, only because given the fact that for strategic purposes it's not a favorable subject. But there are a lot of opposition members who dislike Navalny. A lot of journalists and investigating journalists dislike Navalny because, like I said, Navalny doesn't have a good reputation. He's very arrogant. He usually does not resonate with people in the country areas. He doesn't resonate with people in the villages. He only resonates with people in certain big cities, but even that's not enough to win the whole Russia, especially for change, and especially, against Putin and everything like that. That's why he hasn't been successful in any way, shape, or form. It's because of that. So I will post the docs, Google Docs, as I posted them before in my other video. I'll post them underneath if anybody wants to look at the travel ban available for the FSB officers or anything like that. Again, not 100% confirmed, because again, even though girls have done phenomenal work, at the end of the day, none of it is confirmed. Obviously, there's a lot of perilous coincidences. Are they true coincidences as far specifically of the FSB team? That's the question. Yes, those people died. Yes, highly likely they were not natural causes deaths and not a cardiac arrest based on natural reasons or pre-existing conditions. But nevertheless, just because the travel arrangement, sometimes there's coincidences, and does not automatically mean that coincidence actually meant that they traveled for murder. And especially an elite team to be used with a smaller scale operatives or investigative journalists in Kavkaz, yes, on behalf of Chechnya, but nevertheless, it's still a very questionable situation. So I would love to know what everybody thinks on this topic. Also, to touch base, Peskov just gave an interview to Solovyov. It was a long interview. The main highlights that I think people find interesting: Peskov, of course, said he does not believe that Putin gave orders to poison Navalny. The question was asked, if he found out that was true, would he still be working as a Kremlin spokesman? Of course, he said no. He also said that Vladimir Putin is a great guy. Well, obviously, I mean, clearly that interview was pretty much just another interview. There was no bombshells there. There wasn't anything too specific. There was a huge interest. The only reason it's discussed so much because he is a Kremlin spokesperson. There's a lot of questions asked about Navalny, obviously, which he answered in certain ways. Other than that, it was a very long interview. Solovyov is pro-Putin, of course. He has a lot of guests. A lot of times, Margarita Simonyan, head of RT, is on his program. A lot of other parties are involved in his program, etc. So it's not surprising. However, like I said, if anybody wants to talk about the situation pertaining to poisonings and FSB and chemical weapons and any other parallels or trajectories, I'll leave the parallel names at the bottom of my video. Please click like, please subscribe to my channel. Please let me know if you want to discuss any other topic pertaining to Russia or anything, or Turkey or anything above. Would love to have a discussion. Thank you and have a great evening, everybody.